Well, I'm still with my two guests here in the studio, giving a sort of wider perspective of what we're looking at there for Bastille Day. Let me bring back in our French politics editor, Mark Perelman. Mark, we've been discussing France's campaign in Mali, in the Sahel region, and something I was thinking of asking you from a sort of French political perspective is, do we know how much support France's pretty long campaign has had in Mali? I believe some 50 soldiers have been killed in the campaign there. Do people want troops to leave?
It's a good question. It's a question that's not been asked very often. There was a poll a few weeks back showing that for the first time, half of the French only supported the mission. So that's the only poll, the only publicly conducted poll we know of. The support was stronger before. We can assume that the French president has his own polls, including on this issue. And as we've seen in the US about Afghanistan or Iraq and so on, there's clearly fatigue for those forever missions. The mission started back in 2013, and the results are not really very clear, are not very positive, at least in the eyes of public opinion. 50 people killed, jihadists killing soldiers, civilians every day in Mali, Burkina Faso. Now we hear the French authorities saying, oh, the threat is now going towards Benin, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and so obviously there is a political question somewhere. It might not be the central one, but for the French president to say, well, I'm sending troops abroad. What's the goal? Where does it end? And so it was important for him politically to signal that there was an end in sight. Actually, there's no end in sight. There's only a promise that the number of troops would be halved within the next month and that the operation would become a new one. But clearly this is a politically sensitive issue. It could become obviously more sensitive if we are seeing more French troops being killed. Let's hope that's not the case. But we've seen this story before in Afghanistan, where there was an operation where I believe 13 soldiers were killed, and it became a political issue. So that's certainly on the back of Emmanuel Macron's mind, because the election is only a month away.
Right, and another political issue for Emmanuel Macron when it comes to this campaign in West Africa is there's an argument that is sometimes made is that if we can keep those regions relatively safe and stable, you will prevent migrants trying to cross into Europe. Do you think that is another thing that is in the mind of Emmanuel Macron as he keeps some troops in the region? And is that working, actually, as well?
Well, I think that the link to migration is a pretty indirect one. The link that the French authorities have been making is that, they're saying Africa is becoming the main theater of terrorism activity. Yes, but no. Yes, locally, sadly enough, the Malians, the Nigerians, and people in the region in Burkina Faso are suffering because they're killed on a daily basis. But to my knowledge, there has never been a terrorist plot hatched in the region and executed in Europe or elsewhere. So this notion that this is what Afghanistan was, what Syria or Iraq were, that it's a direct threat to the French soil is not true, at least for now. The link with immigration, it's more the situation in Libya that's been a mess and that no one is able to find a solution to. That's been the main issue. But yes, as Dominique Trancon was saying, it's important to invest in the future of those countries, because the youth should not have the temptation to get a rifle or to get on a boat and try to cross the Mediterranean. Yes, but that's I don't think that the French are justifying their presence in the Sahel to prevent migrants from coming to European.
All right, well, let's bring Dominique Trancon in on that question. And do you agree with that there are some concerns of West Africa becoming a theatre of conflict, but actually it's not a threat in the way that Syria was, Afghanistan was, Iraq was?
I just remind you that Middle East was a threat for us after 2014, meaning after a caliphate was established there, and then they came to us. We are fighting in Sahel in order that there is no caliphate, so no threat to us. So, of course, currently there is no threat. Why? Because they are fighting there. And while they are fighting there, they are not coming to us. That's the first point. Second point, migration. I mean, Africa in a few years will have 2.5 billion people. If you don't procure jobs to these people, they will move. They are moving, 85% of them are moving inside Africa. But you've got 15 or 20% moving outside Africa. And the second point is that if you gather those 2 points, having a caliphate in this region and the explosion of demography, meaning that a lot of people will want to leave this country, not only because they've got no job, but because there is a threat, then you've got a problem. That's why the future of Europe is really to look at what's happening in Africa. It's our future. We need to be very careful of what's happening there.
All right, Dominique Tracon, thank you very much indeed.